Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Thursday, the 15th of September. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by Johnny McFarlane. How are we doing, Johnny?
Yeah, really good, mate. Been out for a wee walk this morning, so feeling fresh, bright, and breezy. Bit of a late one last night after the game, as it always is. I thought a good performance overall, despite the result, but we'll get into that, I suppose.
Yeah, we certainly will. Folks, we had a full-time reaction video after the game last night, myself, Joshua, and it was meant to be Johnny, but the Wi-Fi or whatever gave up. We never put 50 pence in the meter at Ibrox, and we never had Johnny, unfortunately, but he was at the game. In terms of, we'll talk about it, Johnny, because I wanted to get your take on it. Loads of talking points from the match. Of course, Rangers losing in the end 3-0 to Napoli, but they gave a right good go. We're in the game for the best part of an hour until the sending off, really, of James Sands. We had a double save from Alan McGregor from the penalty spot. Napoli then receive another penalty, which they stick away. McGregor unlucky not to get to that one also, and then Rangers chasing the game at 10 men. Napoli were able to add a couple of more goals. But in terms of, we'll kick off from the start, Johnny. When the team was announced, and we'll talk about this in closer detail with Giovanni van Bronckhorst's comments in the post-match press conference afterwards. Lots of supporters saying it's pretty damning on Ross Wilson that no summer signings in the side. It was very much a team that Rangers have had for many a year now. That midfielder, Jack, Davies and Arfield. What did you make of the team when you seen it? I've got to say, I was delighted to see Alfredo Morelos leading the line. But that aside, you're looking at it and you're thinking there's not many new faces in there.
No, but at the same time, I was really quite happy with the team. And I was sort of talking to a few people in the press room and saying that last night ahead of the game. Just because you look at Morelos and Kent up front, you just feel like they're bankers in these type of games. When they're together, you know, they link up really well. And even though Kent hasn't been performing and Morelos has been obviously unfit and has had issues with the manager, there's just a sort of sense of calm that they bring, even when it's not really probably backed up with the facts. So I looked at that and I was quite happy those two were playing together. And then, yes, there was a lot of older heads in the midfield, but just the idea that you'd have Lundstrom dropping back into the defence again, I think that's a mistake that they've kind of moved away from that this season so far. And I thought you added just a level of solidity. Ryan Jack doesn't look to me like the man he was 2 years ago. Looks a bit stiff, looks a bit still like he's finding his feet. But I thought he had an excellent game last night, even though he's not at his best at the moment physically, to my eye. And I might be wrong with that, but that's how I see it. I thought he had a lot of lovely touches, opened up the play well and grafted his backside off. So listen, yes, there was a lot of old stagers. Yes, there was no new signings, and that's a massive talking point. We can't get away from that, Derek. That's absolutely the big point. Nice to see Jim last night at the game. Hello, Jim. Sorry I didn't get a chance to speak to you. I was doing a million things.
Yeah,
but good to see you there. Yeah, and as Jim says, it was at least a return to the Rangers that we know, in a sense that they were fighting for every ball. They were organised. They were diligent. They didn't switch off. They were all over it. So I can't be too disheartened. And hopefully this can be a building block to move forward. I've still spoken to a lot of friends since last night via text and WhatsApp and things like that. And I know there's still people quite unhappy. But for me, the game was very much in Rangers' favour up until the point that they lost James Sands. And you're going up against a really, really exceptionally good opponent in Napoli. I think they're going to be there or thereabouts for Serie A this year.
Yeah.
And they were very impressive. They were very slick. For me, Rangers were pretty much near their best. And listen, the stats back that up. This isn't me just opening my mouth and letting my belly rumble. I've got the stats bomb stuff in front of me, which is the best stats that money can buy. You know, up until the 60th minute when James Sands went off, Rangers were actually significantly ahead on XG. Unfortunately, the minute that James Sands was sent off, Rangers didn't create another chance. They tried to get the ball forward, but they were just up against far too good an opponent to really do that. And I think the minute that happened, it was done and dusted. But Rangers were the better side, and as I say, the numbers back that up. The final XG was 1.14 to Rangers to 3.21 to Napoli. But Napoli had 2 penalties. I think penalties are measured at 0.77. So of that 3.21, around 1.5 was penalties. And significantly, Napoli were sitting about 0.5-ish until the sending off. So they didn't really, create an awful lot. And Rangers had better chances throughout. So, yeah, it was a difficult game and a bit of a bizarre game to kind of analyse.
Yeah, listen, Napoli are a class outfit. I see them going deep in the competition, Johnny. I can understand why they ripped Liverpool apart last week. They're qualifying from this group, there's no doubt about it. And they're in pot 3, which tells you that the calibre of teams that are in this competition, and they're in Rangers' group also. They're up against it, there's no doubt about it. I think it's going to be a learning curve this season in the competition. But last night, the supporters, when they were taking their seats at Ibrox, all they wanted was to see fight and a bit of effort and determination, something that's been lacking in the last 2 games, and they got that in abundance. So I don't think that they can really fault the players on that. They're just coming up against a real top side, and the game changed in that key moment, as it normally does in these big games. Alan McGregor.
Just on that, Derek, I'm going to just jump in before I forget what I was going to say. I thought the supporters brought their absolute A game last night. I'd love to hear what people thought in the comments about the atmosphere. I was expecting it to be a touch flat, just given that we've had 2 4-0 defeats. But I'll tell you, when Alan McGregor saved the second penalty, it was as loud as anything I've ever heard at Ibrox. It was absolutely incredible. You couldn't hear yourself think.
Yeah.
The whole ground was vibrating. And just from beginning to end, I thought the crowd were absolutely fantastic. Really, really tremendous, especially in context of what's happened in the last couple of games. The support was just outstanding. It was the atmosphere was electric. And listen, I've got a wee quote for you from Luciano Spalletti after the game. Now, there was an interpreter, and I speak a little smattering of Italian. And as he was speaking, I sensed that his answer was a lot more, shall we say, descriptive and flowery than the one that was delivered in terms of the guy who was interpreting. So I asked an Italian speaker who I'm close with to translate, and this is what he said. He said it was an emotional evening because we were in a historic stadium with an incredible fan base, and the roar at the start, because it was so tight, because it was so close to the pitch, felt like being in a toaster because of the heat of it. Not bad, eh?
I like that analogy. Yeah, it looked, I mean, I was watching on the TV and it looked absolutely tremendous. And we've got to speak about the display and the tribute beforehand as well, Johnny. The minute silence, the tifo display from the Union Bears was incredible. And likewise, the rendition of the national anthem, God Save the King. And you can see the reaction from news agencies, key personnel worldwide to that display as well. Rangers really show themselves to be proper class operators, and the supporters deserve a lot of credit for that. For quite a tremendous tribute to Her Majesty the Queen, and it's good to see that they defied UEFA by singing the national anthem. What was that like to be in the ground when that was all taking place?
Yeah, it was remarkable. Unfortunately, I'd have loved to have filmed it and been able to kind of really get the moment across, but UEFA don't allow any kind of capturing of images, so we were well warned beforehand that it was not something we'd be able to capture and put on TikTok and Twitter like we normally do. But I think it would have come across in the telly that it was a really passionate moment from the support. I think Rising as one. The Napoli players were very respectful. The Rangers players were belting out the national anthem, and it was just a tremendous moment. And that really galvanised the crowd, and it kind of made you feel like the heartbeat was really pumping, the blood was pumping through the body from the get-go. And listen, Rangers responded. You know, Alfredo Morelos, that's a great chance.
Oh.
You know, you think that if he's been in that team for the last 7 or 8 games, he's probably putting that away. And 30 seconds in, you're 1-0 up with a goal from Morelos, and the whole place is shaking.
Lift off, yeah.
But it was still a great start, and Rangers started the way that I think, in a way that they would want to, especially after the last couple of occasions. So it was fantastic to hear such a throaty rendition of God Save the King.
Yeah, it certainly was. And I wanted to touch on as well the two McGregor saves from penalties. And there's a comment that's come in. I think we're now back to the discussion. Who is it? The number one? Kenny raises the point. Does McGregor keep his place now when McLaughlin is fit? Worried domestically when teams know his weaknesses. His two penalty saves last night were incredible, Johnny. So near to getting the third one as well from Politano. He got a hand onto it, but couldn't keep it out. But 40 years of age, but he showed again last night why he's considered one of the best, if not the best, goalkeeper in Rangers history, and he can still do it.
Yeah, it's remarkable. And I think I tweeted again last night about that moment. I've already said just how spectacular it was in terms of the reaction of the crowd and an individual moment of skill. And that's what it is when a goalkeeper saves a penalty. People don't really classify it as that, but it is it's a skill. And Alan McGregor has always been a phenomenal penalty stopper. And actually throughout the game, it was a perfect game for him, really, because it was the kind of game that really showcases what Alan McGregor can do, because he made a couple of good saves as well. He was very reliable, but it wasn't a situation where balls are getting shelled on top of him, which is probably the area where he's less competent. His absolute competency is as a shot stopper. And I thought, you look at it last night, and obviously you go back to the idea that he has to be number one. But I think Josh would argue, and I understand the argument, that McLaughlin's kind of key to the build-up. And Josh was talking about this throughout the game, that it was difficult for the team to build up the way they normally would, passing out with McGregor in there, because he just doesn't have that same level of poise in the ball to knock it out. I've got to be honest, I don't really agree with Josh that McLaughlin is as good as he thinks he is in terms of playing the ball out from the back. I don't think McLaughlin's getting a game in midfield. I don't think he's not Ederson, and Allison, who are able to kind of stroll out and look as silky in the ball as many of their teammates. But I think he is better. But I don't know. I'm torn on it. I can see both sides, but yeah. I've got to be honest, Derek. I've always been a subscriber to the idea that you pick the guys that are in form. If someone performs really well, you can't then turn around them. Just from a man management point of view, it works in journalism the same. You can't turn around and say, no, you're not the main man anymore. You have to stick with who's delivering week in, week out. And McGregor certainly delivered last night, and I think it's difficult now to take it off him. Listen, there might be an argument, Derek, that in games against Celtic and games against European opposition and difficult games, Alan McGregor comes in, and in games when it's about the build-up and moving the ball quicker, McLaughlin comes in. It might be there's a kind of hybrid. It's imperfect, but Rangers have an imperfect situation, I think, at the moment with the two goalies. So it might be that it's more of a horses for courses, as John Dooley is saying here.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's touch on Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's comments after the game, Johnny. Interesting points. We'll touch on a few questions that were asked at the end of the press conference. He was asked, you started with 3 defenders today, and when Sands went off, you chose to bring on Leon King. What's the situation with Ben Davies? He replied, why do I have to talk about Ben Davies? And then he was asked, just because he doesn't seem to be featuring in the side at the moment. He then replied, no, because he's been injured. He's just back in training. I put players in who I think are ready to play, and that's why I put Leon in first. He's developing really well and played really well in the second half against Ajax, and that's why I put him in, and Ben didn't start. He was then asked about recruitment in a more general sense. He says, not one of the 7 players you brought in started tonight. Is there an issue with recruitment? Talking about the summer signings. I always pick the team that I think will win the game. I'm not going to pick the team based on selecting 3 new signings and 8 who have been here for 10 years. It doesn't work like that. I have 2 eyes. I can see how the performances are. I can see how they train. Eventually, I don't look at new signings or players who have been here for many years. It's just the best 11 for the game today. And I think the starting 11 played really well. And then finally, he was asked about Alfredo Morelos' performance. He said, I've said already, it was a very positive week for him. You can see already he's been working hard. He did well. He was dangerous and could have scored in the first minute. You can see what he brings to the team. In this game, we needed him to be a target man and hold the ball. In the first half, he played really well. I think he should have got some free kicks in his favour with some of the physical battles he had to take with central defenders. He's on another level than he was a couple of months ago. Antonio Cholak is also performing well. So in the number 9 position, we have 2 players there who can give me what I want. But the recruitment question is a valid one. I think when many people seen the team last night, Johnny, they were questioning why there was no summer signings in the side. And Ross Wilson getting it in the neck from many supporters, saying it was very damning for him. What do you make of Gio's response here?
I think the key couple of sentences, well, it's 3 sentences, are here. He says, I have 2 eyes. I can see how the performances are. I can see how they train. And fundamentally, seeing that the 3 players where significant money has been spent, Yilmaz, Matondo, and Davies, are not seen to be good enough by the manager to get into the team. Now, I think Davies has been back training for a few weeks now. I don't think he's just back. I think, based on what Gio said previously, I don't have any inside information about Davies, but I think he said he was back training 2-3 weeks ago. So I think that's concerning. There's no way around it. He's saying that I'm picking the players who are best suited to play, and listen, he's right to do that. But within that, where are these guys? I mean, there's definite questions to be asked. Now, I've defended Ross Wilson. I've defended the players that have come in because it is too early to be saying whether or not Ravi Matondo on a 4-year contract or Ben Davies on a 4-year contract, or indeed Yilmaz on a 5-year contract are going to be successes or not. Scottish football takes time to adapt to. There's been injury issues. There's Yilmaz is a young man who's coming from a completely different culture and a completely different style of football. But Rangers don't have a lot of money to go out and spend, right? Now, that's in context of the market. That's not in context of Scotland. The market is such that if an English Premiership team goes out and spends 3.5 million to 5 million on a left back, that is seen as the equivalent of Rangers going out and spending 300k. So 3.5 million to 5 million doesn't guarantee you a top class starting player at Rangers anymore. It doesn't. You've got to spend that money wisely. And the question is, did you need to spend that amount of money to give Borna Barisic a bit up the backside? Could you have gone and got, I think Josh Doig was about 2.5 million when he went to Verona. For example, significantly less, potentially half the spend of Yilmaz. There's other question marks, obviously, about Ben Davies and whether or not he's going to be able to fit into the way Van Bronckhorst wants to play, based around the fact he's not been selected. So you ask yourself, well, they already had James Sands there, Derek. They already had, I know Philip Helander and John Souttar are injured, but they already had Leon King. If he's going to be behind Leon King and James Sands, why did you go and splash £5 million on him? Again, not 5 million. Listen, these transfer fees are dependent on how they do. 3.5 to 4.5, I think it was. So it's not a question of whether these players will come good or not, because it's too early to make that judgment call. It's, I think, more about, if you had that £12 million, surely a box-to-box midfielder or a couple of box-to-box midfielders and a right winger who we know is going to start, or we're sure is going to start most weeks, would have been a better use of that money. I think it's hard to argue with that point, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel a bit sorry for Van Bronckhorst in a way. I'm not too sure how much say he does have in the transfers. I think he predominantly head coach like modern bosses are at teams. He's given a group of players and he has to coach them and get them into the formation and style of play that he wants to adopt. But some of the signings, not only in this window, Johnny, I think the last 3 windows where you can only really pick one who's a real standout, and that is John Lundstrom. I mean, question marks over the last 3 windows. I think I've seen people asking for Ross Wilson to come out and explain the transfer recruitment. I think that would be a good thing. Just to,
I think it's fair criticism to say Ross Wilson is front and centre when things go well, but he's nowhere to be seen when things go badly. And I say that as someone who's praised Ross Wilson in the past.
Yeah,
I think that's an absolutely fair criticism because you saw the videos coming out of the club after the PSV victory. Ross is there, prominent. You know, he's there and thereabouts when these transfers are coming in. He's there and thereabouts during title celebrations and Scottish Cup celebrations. And listen, he's director of football, so that's perfectly appropriate. But at the same time, you can't just leave it all to the manager. I think if you've got a powerful role like that within a structure at Rangers, you can't just be mute. You have to be able to come out and explain what you're doing to the fans. I mean, even if he's... I get that it's difficult to come out and talk about signings in September, but there's ways and means of doing these things, you know, and I think Ross Wilson has opened himself up to criticism with that.
There's certainly questions being raised with regards to the recruitment. There's no doubt about it. There's a point on Yilmaz. I've been one of those that said it's going to take him time to settle as well. But comments coming in, and rightly so. It doesn't take players across the city time to settle. The players from Japan and what have you. So I'm of the opinion now where he really should be integrated into that side with the money that Rangers have paid for him. Need to get him in some way, shape or form. And I know Borna Barisic, I thought he had a good game again last night, Borna. Unlucky, he's at fault for the penalty. His arm shouldn't be in that position. You can't do that, of course. But in the main, I thought he was relatively good over on that left-hand side. But Rangers do need to find a way of getting Yilmaz into that team. The Davies one is an interesting one. I'm not too sure when he's going to play again. Now with James Sands being suspended, Johnny, in the Champions League, that no doubt opens up a door for Davies. He's got to play now.
The manager selected Leon King last night.
Yeah.
Now, the manager said that he thought Leon King was terrific against Ajax, and he was. When he came on, he was a breath of fresh air. He used the ball well. You saw his terrific long ball over the top that resulted in Borna Barisic's disallowed strike. So I can understand why the manager's happy with him. But just fundamentally, Derek, there's no way of getting around this. If you're going out to spend $5 million on a player potentially that's not as good as your top youth team talent, then your top youth team talent must be generational.
Yeah.
Because not many are going for that kind of money from Rangers. I was at the B team game last night during the day, and they were good. And it was a good performance and very entertaining game to watch. And I see Ali Quinn is saying the B team is dripping with talent. I've got to be honest, there is some talented lads in there, but I don't think there was anyone that jumped out at me as that person is going to make it into the Rangers first team.
No.
Now, I've seen quite a few Rangers B games in my time as a journalist over the years. And there's been, I think, 2 Rangers players that stood out to me in B games that I just thought they are going to make it. One was Calvin Bassey, who was playing for Leicester City against Rangers.
Yeah.
And a 6-1 win for Leicester City. And it was just obvious, like, that guy is just a powerhouse. He's going to make it in the game. I think that was, by the way, the game where he first came onto Rangers' radar, pretty sure. Secondly, it was Nathan Patterson. And I was at a game against Young Boys, and it was just so obvious. Nathan Patterson just absolutely stood out by a mile amongst his teammates. And I honestly think if you're going to make the Rangers first team, you need to be standing out by a mile from your teammates at that level. And Robbie Ure was pretty good. Bustling, hard-working, good touch, and I think he'll have a career in the game. But it's a big jump for a centre forward to make it at Ibrox. You need to be really good, and that's a big ask. And I would have to see a lot more of him before I was going to be making that kind of judgment. Promising, but I don't think quite utterly standout. Now there might be players that I'm doing a disservice to, haven't seen enough of, but the only one that for me looks like they've got a real good chance, the two are King and Lowry, and they're already in the team, so or there or thereabouts. The rest of them, I'm not so sure in terms of the guys that are in the B team at the moment.
Yeah, Charlie McCann is totally ready as well, Johnny. He needs to start playing games.
Yeah, I'm considering these guys as already part of the first team setup.
Yeah, he's at that sort of bridge between. He's too good for the B team, and he needs to start now playing and featuring more for the first team. I think it would add a bit of freshness in that first team as well. A good point here from a good friend of the show, Denzel, as well. He said, I wonder if last night's team selection is indicative of a psychodrama developing between GVB and Ross Wilson.
Do you know what, mate? I just don't think that's how it really works. I think that's a narrative that you apply after the fact.
Yeah.
I just don't think, Football Man, they pick their best team to win a game. And it's very easy for us to kind of analyse it to death to the point that we're starting to create our own kind of narrative structures around these things.
Yeah.
But Gio will just be looking at it, what's the best 11 to win this game? I mean, if he starts looking at making points to those above him as a Rangers manager, you're not going to last.
Yeah. A good point made by Kryptonite. He says Devine as well. Yeah, totally forgot about him, Adam Devine. A lot of people were wanting him in instead of Tav. I thought Tav was pretty decent last night. I've got to say, he was playing that sort of wing-back role, Johnny. He was midfield a lot of the time because Rangers were playing almost that back three. It could turn into a back five at times. It's clear he's not 100% fit still at the moment, and Rangers need him back to his best. Of course, he's such a big player for Rangers, and he's been clearly off it in the last few weeks. Lots of other comments coming in. I'll touch on it a few more. Good comment here from Colin. Says, just signed up last night. Great content, lads. Keep up the great work. Good to have you joining us, Colin, and pleased to hear that you're enjoying the work that we do. Dundee United then, Johnny, for me becomes, and it is, must win at the weekend.
Yeah, times 10. Rangers teams can't lose 4 in a row. They can't lose 3 and draw.
No.
It needs to be a win. It's at home. Dundee United still don't have a manager in unless something's happened today that I'm unaware of. And they are not in good shape. This should be an opportunity for Rangers to go out and put on a convincing performance at home and rack up some goals and start getting themselves back to the levels we know. I said this over and over, Derek, when I was trying to find some level of solace and positivity in the 2-4-0 defeats. And the thing that I kept repeating, because I genuinely believed it, was that Rangers had played so poorly and so below their levels in the 2 games, it wasn't representative of the squad or the manager. And I think we saw that against Napoli. If Rangers had played like that, they did last night against Celtic, they wouldn't have lost 4-0.
No.
Ajax were very good, and it's on their home patch. But I still think if they played like they played last night, then it would not have been.
No, they might have get beat, but the supporters would accept the performance.
Let's be honest here, Derek. Do the supporters really care that much about results in the Champions League, or is it performance? I think there's an understanding from most people that it's going to be a learning curve. It is the top level. Rangers haven't been there in over a decade, and it's going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah.
The key thing here is the Celtic game. That's the trigger for everything. If that game had been a draw, for example, I don't think there would be the same level of disgruntlement about the last 2 games, as bad as Ajax was. But this is the world that we live in with Rangers, and there's always going to be that level of pressure. But Dundee United represents an opportunity to get the train back on the tracks.
Yeah, Yeah, Connor Goldson said similar when he was speaking to BT Sport last night after the game. Rangers need to win, and I think win well against Dundee United. They're a team in disarray, no manager, just been pumped, of course, 9-0 in the last few weeks, also at home. Rangers need to be taking a good number of goals off them and starting with that same intensity as they did last night. So hopefully they're getting back on track, because 3 defeats at Rangers, they say 2 defeats is a crisis at Rangers. There's context around it, of course, playing tough venues, Celtic, Ajax, and of course Napoli last night, who were an absolutely outstanding outfit. But Rangers need to get back winning in the league. It's absolutely essential. And with, of course, Celtic playing on Sunday, closes that gap temporarily, puts a little bit of pressure on before they play the following day. Okay, folks, I think that'll do us there. Just before we go, just a mention of our sponsor. We've got a great offer on just now. Football Prizes giving away, they're giving away the signed Rangers away jersey signed by the entire first team squad. All you have to do to get in with a chance of winning this is head over to footballprizes.co.uk and it's £3.95 to stick your name in to enter. As you can see, Johnny's popped the link in the comments section. So head over to there, pay your £3.95, and that's you entered into the draw. And I'm led to believe, Johnny, there's only so many entrants for this as well. It's not as if there's thousands upon thousands that are able to win it.
Yeah, it's only 125 maximum, but I don't think it's anywhere near that at the moment. So I think for your £3.95, you're getting a very, very good chance. Of course, it's Champions League branding as well, so it's got the patch on the shoulder, so it's just a really terrific wee prize that you could use in your home bar or your man cave or whatever you want to call it. I don't know if that's quite sexist now, using the term man cave, Derek. I'm going to get cancelled for saying that. Your non-gendered cave.
Yeah.
I think it would look really terrific framed on a wall somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. So go and check it out, folks. And just a reminder, you can see the little ticker below. We've got a great offer on the site, and so many of you taking advantage of it. £1 for 2 months worth of content. We're practically giving it away. Head over to rangersreview.co.uk/subscribe for all the details. As ever, I'll put the link in the comment section as well, so you can take advantage of all the great stuff. And there's loads on there, lots of fallout from last night, and more. So go and check it out. We'll be back again tomorrow to have a proper look ahead to the match against Dundee United on Saturday. But until then, enjoy the rest of your Thursday.